Assalamu alaikum everyone and a very good afternoon to all the dearest viewers. Hope you all are doing great. I would like to thank you all for joining our webinar today on this Ramadan afternoon. I, Nahla Nawar, warmly welcome you all to our special webinar with Banglalink, a holistic approach to HR. As you all know, our event, Advent HR 2021, is now live and the registration is going on. Advent HR 2021 is a HR-based case competition organized by BUP Human Resource and Leadership Club. This is the first nationwide HR case competition from BUP. This event aims to promote the aspects of human resource and leadership while assuring all the enthusiast students who wish to grow their career in HR. The registration closes in just a day, so you can visit our website at www.buphrlc.org/adventhr2021. And in a very few simple steps, you will get to register for the event. So now moving on to our today's session. This webinar is specially organized to help all our viewers to have a holistic insight about HR and its aspects. Today, for the discussion, we have a very esteemed guest among us. So without further ado, let's welcome Ayesha Saeed ma'am, Head of Talent Management, Banglalink.
Hi Nahla, thank you for having me.
Thank you ma'am for joining us here. So first of all, let's get to know about our speaker today. So Ayesha Saeed ma'am is an experienced HR personnel over 15 years of working experience in banking and telecommunication industry. She has been serving diligently as a human resource business partner before getting promoted to her current position of Head of Talent Management. Previously, she had served as an associate human resource generalist for 7 years in Citibank. Before that, she performed as a management trainee in Commercial Bank of Ceylon Limited. So that was a very great introduction of our dearest speaker for today. I hope you all will enjoy the session. And I would request all the viewers to drop your comments and queries in the comment section, and we will try to get back to you and answer as much as we can. So with your permission, ma'am, shall we proceed to the main session?
Yes, of course, let's do that.
Okay, so to begin with, like HR has always been a very important part for any organization, and often it has been observed on how people who are interested in HR get anxious over developing their career in HR, thinking it to be complex, and they get really perplexed about the situations. So currently, you are in a very prestigious position of a reputed company of our country. So would you like to share your career journey and experiences with us?
Thank you, Nahla, for the question. You've already made an introduction about myself. So if I was to actually talk about my career, I think I'm one of the first graduates from my university, which is North South, where I graduated with an undergrad degree with a major in HR in BBA. So I think we were the first batch at that time. And so even at that time, there was confusion whether, the difference between general management, admin, and HR. So there was always that confusion. And eventually, of course, that has been made clear. And the way I see is, if I look at my career, I think I must say a lot of gratitude to the managers that I work with. Because, any job that you do, starting from a junior level to a senior position, it's very important that you learn the ropes from your peers and your line managers. So I think it has been a great journey, and I think that to a lot of extent, I have had the opportunity to work in many areas of HR. So if you think about HR, it's just not about recruitment. It's not about training. There are other areas of HR as well, like HR operations, there's rewards, right? There's performance management, and there's employee relations, and communication. So there are so many employer branding. There's so many aspects of HR, and I think I would say in that extent that I've had the opportunity to, and talent management, of course. So I've had the opportunity to work in many areas, and I will be happy to share my insights with you with the rest of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, as you stated that there are different parts of HR and different sort of activities included in it. So, we would like to talk about talent sourcing now. Like, talent sourcing has been a really tough job if we consider in the perspective of the employer. They really work hard to ensure this. So, in this case, what process do you follow to ensure that proper talent sourcing?
So, first of all, before I speak about the process, is the philosophy of a particular organization, right? So, at the end of the organization, what is it made of? The organization is made of people, right? If you do not have the
Yes,
right people for the right jobs, things will fall apart. So, the talent sourcing or talent acquisition, as we put it, is one of the most, I would say, one of the most important I would say, important departments in the organization, in the sense that even one mistake of a recruitment can have business consequences, right?
yes,
So hiring
definitely.
the right person is extremely important. And we at Banglalink, we believe in, hiring the most capable, world-class employees. And we follow lots of processes. And one of the most important process is we screen the best candidate for the job. And we try to be unbiased. We do not discriminate. And we try to interview from different levels. For example, even for a particular position that we're hiring, for example, a digital manager or HR manager, there will be a number of people from the function and from HR who will be doing number of steps to interview, so that to eliminate as much as bias as possible. So to be fair, that is something that we really want to do. And of course, we have lots of processes, but our main intention is to ensure that the most credible person with the right skill sets and who is a cultural fit joins our organization.
Well, that's great to hear this. And as you say, that being fair is actually really vital. And this is also important to assure the applicants that they are being fairly treated by the organization so that it won't disappoint them much. So, in this case, what skills are required for talent sourcing?
So, as a recruiter, definitely you have to be trained to evaluate people, right? For example, now I'm a recruiter myself. So, there are trainings that I have done, and of course, I've learned on the job as well, on how do you, really probe a person and understand whether that person is telling you the truth in the interview. How do you compare whether the person has the knowledge and the breadth and the right amount of attitude and the cultural fit to come and work in our organization, right? So these are the skill sets that a recruiter must have in order to attract, in order to interview rightly. So a technique that we use is widely, which is called behavioral driven interview. We do ask a lot of open-ended questions. So we will not ask you, bookish questions at all. Most of the time, if it, we will try to ask you questions related to experiences. And then, based on the answers that you gave, we do a comparison amongst the people who interview. And then, of course, we select the best resource. But then again, this is just a very generic thing I'm saying. For particular roles, I think you have more questions around it. There are, for particular roles, we do, have different hiring strategies. So I will definitely talk about that in a coming few minutes.
Okay, that's great to hear. Like, this is a really, I think, a tough process and definitely a critical job for from the employer side, just as it's hard for the applicants. So, moving on, we all know how much efforts it takes to plan a recruitment process and in executing them properly. So, what we should like to know that what are the points that you consider while planning a recruitment?
So, you see, we don't go on a reactive approach. The way we work is in a proactive approach. For example, as a recruiter, I would need to know what are the new positions or roles that are evolving in the market, right? For example, nowadays, a digital marketeer who is selling online, right? That's a new skill. Now, a lot of people are
Yes,
going live and selling for ETH, right? These are new skill
yes.
sets. So, as an organization, as a recruiter, we need to know what are the skill sets that would be required 5 years from now, right? So we
It's
have to
tough to
plan
know.
accordingly. You don't, a job just pops up and you start recruiting. It doesn't work like that. So we have to have a pipeline of people who are in the market or who could, or internally even, who could who could who would have the skill sets to perform a job like that. So I think this is something very important, that for a recruiter, being proactive in understanding what the business you're in and what kind of new roles that would come in, and also do have homework to, as in identify the resources in the market and match accordingly. I hope that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yes, that makes sense perfectly. So, how do you identify, like after all these efforts and doing all these plannings, how do you identify that your process or your planning is a successful one? Like, how do you get to know that?
Yeah, so there is this ratio I was talking about from my colleague, is the number of hires divided by number of hires and their performance rating in a particular year. For example, if I hire 10 employees and all of them have a good performance in a particular year, that means that's a very good indicator that the hires that I've made are actually contributing to the business, right? So it is
Yes,
very visible. If a recruitment goes wrong, it will clearly affect the business, as I said, and it can be catastrophic. And
definitely.
because nowadays the organizations are very streamlined. There is no pocket for hiring extra resources, right? Every organization has flat. Most organizations have flat structures. So you cannot. It's not like you're hiring a lot of people. So even the number of recruitments that you do, they have to be of quality, and these people should have and the amount of performance that and the contribution that they have, it is also very much visible. So a recruiter's success at the end of the day is the performance of the employee,
Yes,
of
so the
which they recruit.
performance evaluation is playing a really big role in here. So we will get to know about it on the later part of this session. So now coming on that, once the recruitment is done, there has to be the processing of onboarding those employees, the newly recruited ones. So are there any certain steps that you follow in onboarding these employees?
Yes, once again, let me talk about a philosophy here. So, cultural integration is very important. It's not like you just hire a person, the next day they come, 1 month or 2 months later, they join your organization and start performing. Because, most freshers, most employees, if we hire from another organization, or even if we hire freshers, they have no idea about what our organization is all about, right? So it's very
Yes.
important to integrate them from the moment they accept our offer. And we have an app called Talmundu. So we use this app to onboard the person after the person signs the offer. So it's basically even before they join our organization, 30 days from before, they start learning about our organization. They'll start learning about our policies, our processes. So we try to kind of integrate these people even before they join us, right? And
Yes.
also so there's that exposure. And of course we feel that onboarding is extremely critical, because there is a statistics that if an onboarding doesn't go right, and in the first 3 months things the employee might even leave. So this is a very critical step. And of course when an employee joins, we try to keep them warm. The line manager speaks to that person even before the person joins, and then we also share, send a welcome note. So we do the softer parts as well, so that we ensure that the commitment for the employee is there when they decide to join Bangladesh. So the onboarding part is extremely important.
Yes, and looks like you take a great care in this process, being really empathetic employer. So
Right.
now moving on, like as we know that with time everything is changing and evolving into something new or something better. So I guess this is also applicable in considering the recruitment processes. So if we compare a recruitment process from a few years back, suppose it could be 10 years from now, and that with the current recruitment process, how do you think that this process have evolved with time?
This is a very interesting question, because when I first joined as a management trainee, I think the first assignment I was given was to hire management trainees. So, I remember, I was going through this big pile of, CVs manually, and every interview had these evaluation paper sheets, right?
Yes.
So now everything has become digital, right? So we use different technology for recruitment. We are totally digital, and even interviews ever since the pandemic has become digital. So if you say that what is the difference between interviewing 10 years back to now, essentially I think the biggest change in recruitment has come the way we're doing it. We have totally become digital and paperless less, and we're now using more digital tools to do recruitment. So I think that would be the biggest change.
So, do you think that the current process is better than what it was before?
Definitely, definitely it saves time. For example, earlier, if I was to go and look for a candidate who applied 2 years back, I would to probably have to go through lots of different files, right? Folders, and chances
Yes.
were slim that I would actually end up finding one because I would have been piled with papers and papers. But now it's different. It's just a fingertip away. If I was to find out whether Nahala had ever interviewed at Banglalink, all I need to do is go to my tool, write the name, and it will pop up together with the
Yes.
evaluations that this person, if you had interviewed with us before, I would have the historical record of whatever was interviewed, whatever the records of that interview, right? So definitely being digital helps us to be more efficient, productive, and I would say it kind of reduces the operational work and lets us focus on the quality of the hiring.
Okay, that's really clear, I guess. So, you mentioned about the pandemic and how things have been more shifted in the digital platform. So, is this pandemic affecting negatively, or is this mostly on the positive side that due to COVID, your recruitment process have changed very much? Like, how is it driving the changes
I
in the
must
process?
say, in terms of productivity, there is absolutely, to some extent, I would say we're more productive because we're doing all the interviews, digitally, and it helps because earlier, when we had physical interviews, we had to do coordination, let that person into the office. There was a lot of, one of those administrative things, but now it's just a fingertip away, right? I think, being digital is actually helping now. So I would, if you were to ask me, are we better off? Of course, with all due respect to what is happening with the pandemic, God forbid, we are not happy about that. But in terms of our processes, we have quickly adopted to the digital way. So definitely, there has been no business impact.
Oh, that's great that because COVID is actually impacting every sector in the world, and it's tough that we get to use, we are getting taking it as a positive manner, and it's good that the recruitment process is not being affected. Otherwise, the job market would have been greatly hampered with the overall situation that's been prevailing currently. So, in your opinion, what I get to know that it's really positive that whatever the changes have been occurred throughout time or be it due to COVID, you think this to be very much productive and much more positive than before.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. So till now we were discussing about the recruiting process and its changes, but as a part of HR employee management, it's also important that we get to know the employees better and manage them better. So an organization often requires adapting ways of developing their employees for the overall betterment. So what do you think is the most effective way of developing these employees?
Right. So once again, let me speak from the point of Bangalink. So when you hire a talent, like somebody like you who enters the organization, with a lot of enthusiasm, and you started your work, right? Pretty soon you would. There are certain things that you would learn on the job, right? And
Yes.
then there are certain things that you would need to get training for. So at Bangalink, we believe that we want to give you that kind of a career progress. We want to nurture you, and we want you to be ready. We want you to be ready for the next job, and also you perform well at your present job. So that is a kind of philosophy we have, and to in order to cater to that, of course, we have to take a lot of initiatives, and we call it the individual development plan for Bangalink. A continuous self development is extremely important. So there are opportunities that you get on the job, and then the organization, as an organization, also we help the organization, the employees to, how can I say, equip them with current new skill sets and skill sets of the future. So this is the motive of the organization, and we have dedicated people in our organization who's continuously working to ensure that our employees receive the learnings, the development needs they need to perform in their particular job.
So there are multiple sort of trainings and development modules present here. So how do you identify or choose the trainings which one's best fitting for your employee?
Right. So we have a process during our year-end evaluation where we actually, where the line manager and the employee sits and they talk about their performance, and then they talk about, gaps. Like for example, today I might need to work with Excel, but I don't know Excel. Example. So that need is already identified, right?
Yes,
So,
definitely.
so basically we have a training need analysis process for the entire organization where employees do a self-assessment on what are the kind of trainings that they need, right? And also the line manager approves the same. And then we from HR, we look at, who would be the best trainer to come and teach that training, right? So we do a detailed analysis for every single employee of the organization on, to help them with, to help to cater to their needs of training and development. So it is a rigorous process. It takes some time. We do an in-depth analysis for around 2 to 3 months, and then we then decide on the training calendar, and based on that, we deliver.
Okay, so you mentioned that suppose I need Excel to work, but I don't know much about Excel. So in this case, will you allow me to be hired in your company because I don't know the essential skills that I need for my job, uh, whatever
But
I'm
it
given?
depends. For example, you might know basic, but the job requires you to do advanced. It depends like that, right?
Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay, clear. So after all the efforts that you give to train these employees to develop themselves, so how is it possible to ensure that this motive is being successful or the employees are being developed properly?
So once again, it's visible. For example, when people, employees take up different roles internally. For example, today, Nahala, you might join my organization as a digital manager. In 1 or 2 years' time, you might, join another job in the same organization, right? When employees within the organization, when they take up different responsibilities, because how are they taking these responsibilities? Because for sure they have learned something on their current job. And when we talk about learning and development, it's not just not about classroom training, right? It's a 70-20-10 model, right? We
Yes.
say that you learn 70% on the job, and then 20% from development relationships from peers, like watching my colleagues what they're doing, and then the 10% is the classroom training. So the more employees have the opportunity to learn, in the philosophy of 70-20-10, they get developed for the next job, right? So I think the most and also to some extent the attrition. When your attrition in the organization is less because the employees are probably happy, they're learning a lot of new things, right? So these are indicators about whether the employees are satisfied with the opportunities, career opportunities, and the learning opportunities they have in the organization. That is one aspect of looking at it.
Okay, that's very clear, I guess. But sometimes it might also happen that I am an employee in your organization, but I am not very much interested in taking a part in this training and development because I might think that I'm already working hard for my job, and then I have to do this additional training and I have to engage in some additional stuffs for this training part. So in this case, how do you motivate these employees to take participate or in these training programs?
Right. So you see, no training is ever imposed on anybody. As I said, it's a self-assessment process. You identify where your gap is, and your line manager gives you feedback, right? So this is something
Yes.
you do as a yearly process, and it's more of once again, it's a proactive process to your own self-development. And at Banglalink, we have the philosophy that learning is continuous. That's the mindset that one every employee in Bangladesh should have, and that is a global practice, I think. So, if you think that your job is limited to 9 to 6, and that's it, you're just going to do 10 things, and then that's it. That's not going to work, right? If you want to excel in your career and do better, and have versatile different experiences and roles, and grow in the organization, It is extremely important, and most corporate employees, I can tell you this much, that they understand the need of self-development. And in our organization, almost I would say 100% of our employees are very motivated to for self-development.
Yes, it's. I think that the current job market or the current set of employees present in the job market are very much self-aware of their own development, and they're willing to grow better from day to day. So I guess that actually reduces this sort of hustles of motivating them more for the training part. So, like now moving on, like as you mentioned earlier about the employee evaluation and management. So, I would like to ask you, like, how do you manage to properly evaluate employees?
So for us, the philosophy is continuous feedback, right? For example,
Yes.
today I did something wrong, or I could have done something better. Don't wait for a formal meeting. Give me the feedback today, right? So that is the philosophy of performance management we have at Banglalink. It's all about continuous feedback. And but of course we have our structured processes as well. KPIs are set in the beginning of the year, and then year end evaluation. There is the year end evaluation, and there is the mid year evaluation as well. So in the mid year, we talk about whether the KPIs are on target, or something is behind. And in the year end, you talk about your entire year's performance. So while there are structured processes, but in general the philosophy is you don't really wait for a formal process. For any development or any need, for any need of improvement, it should be communicated then and there.
Okay, that's great. But as you mentioned about the performance indicators that you set up in the beginning of the year, so what are the key trends of these indicators that you use for the performance management?
So for us, it's basically, the KPIs that you set are, of course, according to the job role that you're hired for. For example, me as a recruiter, I would probably have 5 or 6 KPIs related. I might have 2 or 3 KPIs related to recruitment. But on the other hand, for us, it's just not only performance is just not measured on, just the job itself, right? It's also how you're doing the job, right? The behavioral aspects are also evaluated. So in our case, in Banglalink, we also do evaluate the values. So what we're saying is, you might be doing a job very well, but in the process, you have to also live the values of the organization. So it's not about what job you're doing, but how you're doing it, right? So when we talk about
Yes.
performance at Banglalink, we also look at the software aspects, the leadership skills as well.
Okay. Very clear. So, as everything changes, so there also might be some changes that was visible or observed in the process of employee evaluation. So, what do you think about those?
Well, employee evaluation, different organizations have different ways. Maybe in traditional organizations, they are not digital. Maybe they don't follow the process of continuous feedback, right? But for
Yes.
evolving organizations, the philosophy, they follow the philosophy of continuous feedback. Because if you don't, as I said earlier, if you don't give a feedback then and there, then it doesn't help the person to improve, right? The evaluation is actually about, well, the essence of any evaluation is for the person to improve, right? So I think for us, the appraisal process is very important because it not only helps us identify, the learning and development gaps, it also helps us identify the next successors for roles in the organization. For definitely somebody who has high potential, who's doing very well, would have the chances of a better career progression in the organization. And from talent management, we work solely to ensure that employees have a career. Nahla, are you there? Are we disconnected? So we'll just wait for a moment. I think Nahla is disconnected for her to come back. Please excuse us for this technical glitch.
Sincere apologies for the technical difficulties. Um, so I guess now we can move on to the comment section for answering the queries. So first of all, there is Al Hassan Abujoy who asked about considering the global HR practices in your own perspective, what's the position of Bangladesh?
So I honestly believe that the multinational organizations in Bangladesh have definitely follow. They try to follow the best HR practices, and also to some extent, I think even in the private sector, a lot of employees from multinational companies have joined, and they are also trying to standardize many HR practices, best global HR practices. But definitely, for sure, I think of course there are room for improvement, but I wouldn't say that we are not at par with global HR practices. Even in local organizations, and from a Bangladesh point of view, I'm sure a lot of good practices are being practiced as well. Thank you, Abu Jor, for your question.
Okay, so the next one is from Mashur Ahmed. It's like HR sector is planning for restoring employee motivation. So what an HR should keep in mind while planning for restoring HR motivation?
So basically, it's not only the HR's responsibility to ensure motivation. It's actually, it's an organization culture, right? So, for example, if you look at our how do we motivate employees at Bangladesh? So definitely, when somebody does a good job, we recognize them, right? So recognition is extremely important, and then also the environment that you work in. The work environment is also very important, right? Is it an open environment? Is it a transparent environment? Are you being respectful to your colleagues? Is it a zero harassment work environment? Do I have all the infrastructure to perform my job, right? And also in terms of career, and development, is my organization, taking care of that. In terms of compensation and benefits, is my organization taking care of that as well? So for motivation, there are different factors for every person. Motivation varies, but definitely as an organization, we work continuously to ensure that the right amount of motivation factors are present to ensure that the employee is doing their best every day. I
Okay,
hope that
thank
answers the
you.
question, Mashur.
So the next question is from Saira Ibnat Pia. She asks, what are the fundamental skills an HR look into a fresher?
I think I would say nowadays you have opportunities to do a lot of case studies, right? So reading
Yes.
is very important, because when even during our time, maybe we didn't have exposure to so many specific HR related case studies. So HR is something that you have to learn on the job, definitely, about the processes. But overall, the concepts of HR, other than the bookish knowledge, I would suggest that we would, when we look at a candidate for HR, we want to see how much the agile the person is, right? And if this person is a people oriented person, while those things are behavioral characteristics, it is also very important that you have, as a fresher, you have knowledge about what the industry, what are the trends of the industry, and you will learn most of that from the case studies.
Okay, so take note of this that you guys should be more engaged with case studies and take them much more seriously. So
For
there is
sure.
another question from Mashur Ahmed. He asked for a startup. What steps do HR take to ensure a high employer brand equity for his or her company?
So, employer branding, is very important, because if you want to attract somebody in your organization, you must have some level of employer branding, right? So, even for a startup, for example, which are the successful startups nowadays? There's ShopUp, right? And there's
Yes.
Foodpanda, and employees are joining over there, right? Why are
Yes.
employees joining in these great companies? because I'm sure they have done a certain amount of employer branding. So it's very important that you need to talk about what your organization is about and what are the opportunities your organization can provide, even if it is a startup, because even you might have a value proposition, right? For us, our value proposition is rethink, restart, recreate. Even startups will have a value proposition. So if you can establish that value proposition in the market, and establish your employer brand, I don't think it would be difficult to attract the right kind of talent. And I think nowadays youngsters really prefer working in startups.
Yes, definitely. Also, it's like very common to get firstly introduced or getting engaged in a startup company, then moving on to a reputed one. Okay, so the next question is from again Mashur Ahmed. If a whistleblower puts a bad image on the brand equity for a company which ends up demotivating internal existing employees, how do HR handle the situation?
But you see, if it's there are different kinds of whistleblowers, so I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. But for example, if it is something to do with the malpractice that one employee has done, the organization has to make a corrective action, right?
Yes,
So the moment
definitely.
you make a corrective action, it should not hurt or harm the brand at all. So it depends. Like if the organization lives with, something that is illegal or unethical, then it will hurt the employer brand anyways, even if there is no whistleblower.
Yes, definitely. So the next question is from Tasnim Zerin Nijhum. What are the most important attributes of successful leaders today?
There are lots and lots of attributes. I keep on asking myself as well. But I think in a digital world, one of the most important attributes is to be digitally savvy. And ever there in the pandemic, we are having to multi-work, multitask. So, while you are multitasking and, you're digitally savvy, something else that is very important is emotional intelligence. Leaders who have more emotional, or who are able to demonstrate more emotional intelligence, are said to be more composed and more accepted leaders. Thank you.
Okay. So the next question is from Nafiz Alam. Do you expect the management styles would be reshaped for the post-pandemic situation?
For sure, the way we were working earlier, and the way we're working right now, there's a big change. So now the focus is on how to be more productive while working from home or in the hybrid model, right? And the future
Yes.
of work, as you know, is hybrid. So definitely, the leadership style, management style has to be adopted so that we work more efficiently in a hybrid model of working. So and I think most organizations are spending the effort and their time in trying to figure out what would be the best approach to work in that model. So definitely in the post-pandemic situation, management styles would definitely be different. I think it is already different now. And I mean, we have been working for for the last since March from work from home, and in between we did a bit of hybrid office as well. So definitely there has been a remarkable way in the way we are managing change.
Okay, so the next one is from Safwan Anand. HR analytics is important for the HR. In perspective of Bangladesh, is HR analytics are being practiced nowadays? Are really being practiced nowadays?
Yes, remember you when you asked me about the success rate of a hire, I gave you a ratio, right?
Yes.
So definitely HR analytics is extremely important. And at Banglalink, of course, I can definitely tell you, we do have these ratios and we do look at these numbers. For example, time to hire, or, time to recruit, the attrition rate, employee productivity, or, any of these ratios, the HR ratios that you see. These are extremely important, and this gives us a very important insight to how we are performing right now, right? That's what the analytics do. And HR analytics is extremely important, and this is something that really helps us put us, for example, if we are below a target, or if we are lagging behind. These are the analytics that kind of tell us the story as to what's happening at the current situation.
Okay, definitely. So here's a question that we missed earlier. This is like from Tondra Zara. She asks, "Do you think we fresh graduates from Bangladesh have big prospects in HR arena, especially amidst the work from home condition?"
For sure, because you see, due to the pandemic, everybody's working from home, right? Why not? If the organization is hiring, and then there's definitely going to be opportunity. But if the organization is not hiring, then of course, the story is different. But I feel that as long as business is open, they would need HR professionals. So definitely they would hire HR professionals.
Okay. So then there is a question from Al Hassan Abujar. What are the skills an undergraduate student should cultivate for building his career to be an HR?
So some of the skill sets that you have to develop is you have to be thorough, you have to be committed, right? You have to be
Yes.
sincere. These are things that cannot be taught, but you have to come with these value sets. And in terms
Okay.
of HR, definitely, when you come as a fresh graduate, when you come into an organization, the organization will give you all the opportunity to learn the policies, the processes, right? You will learn the hard skills, but the softer skills of you being committed and being respectful, being proactive, ability to see the big picture, right? These are definitely some of the leadership capabilities that we look for in undergraduates, fresh students.
Okay.
And also,
So
above all, the ability to work in teams and collaborate.
okay. So that's great. I hope that answers your question, Abujor. So next one is from Tanjim Rahman. She asked, there was a debate in many organizations about the paid sick leave. What's your opinion about it? Should it be implemented in all the organization? If not, what will be the threshold? A very long
So,
question.
totally personally, from my point of view, if you're, nobody wants to be sick, right?
Yes, totally.
Nobody wants to be sick. So, these are crisis situations, and the organizations should be by your side during this crisis situation. So, I think that kind of helps to answer this question.
Okay, so the next one is from Russell Hussain. These days, a lot of free rein management is seen in the startup culture. How effective is this management style in corporate culture?
So I think what he's referring to is maybe in startups, they have a lot of fluid teams, right? One day I can be leading a project, another day I can be, I might have a different manager. The other day I can probably be a team member of the project, and somebody else can be my manager, and the project's probably so that's more of agile or fluid kind of working. So maybe for startup it helps because they have. Very small number of usually they have smaller number of employees, right? And probably they don't
Yes,
follow too many processes. But as a startup grows, right, they become a
yes,
corporate, right? So
yes,
definitely
yes,
the same practices cannot be applicable for a corporate, because a corporate there are lots of governance issues, right? So
yes.
definitely, the free rein management style may not work.
Okay, the next is from Mahmoud Sinan. How Banglalink deals with the unethical situation? Is there any department or team controlling such stuff? Such stuff.
Yes, we actually have a very strong compliance and ethics department, and we at Banglalink say that ethics and compliance is everybody's business. It's not the responsibility of the compliance department. Whether I am doing a job ethically, whether I am compliant with my process, that is my responsibility, right? So compliance and ethics is everybody's responsibility in the organization, and of course, the policy owners are the ethics and compliance department, and we have a very transparent process. If any employee sees anything unethical, they can whistle blow, and then they can call the hotline, and then they can talk about it. And it's a very transparent culture. There's zero tolerance for unethical activities in Bangladesh. It's a very, very compliant organization, and we have very streamlined policies and practices that help to maintain that culture. Very proud
It's
of that, actually.
more, I think it's more of the self conscience of an individual.
Right. And also, the as an organization, as I said, we have zero tolerance.
Yes, that's really great. So the next one is from Shayu Mabrar, was there any time you had to go beyond the set of policies of the organization to solve any trouble?
You see, policies are there to put sanity into the way of doing things, right? But definitely there are situations. Maybe it's not written in the policy, but you might need to take an exception for that particular situation. And of course, time to time we do work with that, but it's not only my decision. We talk about it, the management agrees, and then it's a collaborative approach. Everything will
Okay.
never be mentioned in the policy if you're asking me that.
Okay, so the next one is from Shadman Shariar. What factors do you consider to establish a good HR in line with organizational management in prospect of business analytics?
I am not very understanding this question. Maybe Shadman, can you kind of rewrite this question for me?
Okay, so we can move on to the next one until Shadman rewrites it again. Okay, so from Ryan Saif, it's in your opinion, what are the trends will reshape HR departments over the next 5 years?
So the next trends of HR is definitely, the HR department is going to uh, focus a lot more on talent management, which is nurturing talent and preparing talent for the future. So, I think that the future of HR is, to continuously develop the leaders in the organization. I think the main focus is going to be on, and also HR is no longer seen as a support department. HR colleagues are now part of the board, right? So you will see the future now and also for the future, HR colleagues will be driving business agenda to facilitate business, right? So their
Yes.
opinion will definitely count. So I think that is the future of HR, where we are partnering with business to, deliver value, and we have a say as well.
Okay. So next one's from Tanji Muni Mugdho. In the industries which focuses on talent acquisition and showcasing talent, such as sports industry, film industry, what would be the best HR approach for long-term goals in this pandemic?
Showcasing talent, maybe, I think if I understand your question, so every, for definitely for the sports, and the film media, those are visible, very visible, right? What happens inside the office, that cannot be shown. But definitely, from an employer, if I were to answer this question from an employer branding point of view, we do talk about the success stories of our colleagues. If you go into your LinkedIn page, you will see where colleagues, and our Facebook page, you will see that our colleagues talk about their journey at Banglalink, right? So these are our talented employees who talk about the experiences. And at Banglalink, there's a kind of culture we have. We want the best talent to join us, and for that, we let our colleagues and employees talk about, how wonderful the job environment is at Banglalink, what kind of great career opportunities and the interesting projects that they have in hand, right? So we talk about their success stories and we let them talk about it. So I think social media is one of the channels through which, at least for Banglalink, I must say that, we are showcasing talent, and I think many other organizations are doing the same.
Okay, so the next one is from Bodru Rahman. What kind of changes you faced during the lockdown and how did you manage your human resource while working from home?
Very, very valid question. Today, even in the morning, while I was conducting an interview, I had people at my doorstep, right? And my help at home, she was trying to grab my attention. Sometimes, even during meetings, my son would walk into the room and then he would go away. The usual things from working from home. So, and when you're at home, it's just not work, right? There's also things at home that also pops up, errands that pops up. So it's very important for, to kind of plan out your day and have the logistics and the support at home in place to work from home, because you also want to, you only have a number of hours to work. And so there has to be clear demarcation between work from home and working at home, right? These are two different things.
Yes.
Doing errands at home is working at home, and work from home is working for the office. So one has to have that kind of infrastructure and the mindset and supportive, family members to understand the importance of your job. So I
Yes,
think that is
definitely.
something very important, and I think, personally speaking, this really helps me to actually perform at my best, because of the support system that I have at home to, for me to deliver my job.
Okay, so the next question is from Al Hassan Abujor. What do you view as the top HR risk for an organization? How would you minimize those risks?
So there are definitely different, there are definitely different kind of HR risks, right? So I would not say this is the top HR risk, but there are different risks. For example, there can be operational risks. For example, you might not get paid in a month, and that will create, for example, your name may not be, or you might get overpaid. It can be any situation. So those are operational risks. And then, there are recruitment risks. I might not hire the best employee, and then, and that person might come and do unethical practices. So there is a reputation risk as well, right? So there are definitely different kind of risks in risks with every process that HR has. But I cannot really say that this is a top biggest risk. There is not, every risk is equally important for us.
Definitely. So, what type
And
of
also,
H?
to come back to the question, there are risks which is related to legal, right? Regulatory risks. So if you do not follow the labor laws, or the laws of the country, that also puts the organization into dilemma. So those risks are also important to be taken care of.
Okay, so from Safwan Anand, what types of HR metrics really help HR to evaluate and point out the employee's performance properly?
So I think I already spoke about it. Some of the important matrices is, of course, you need to see, uh, evaluate the person fairly on the goals or the KPIs that the person sets, right? For example, if you have four KPIs, and then I come up with seven other KPIs during a year-end appraisal, that's not fair, right? So the KPIs have to be agreed that this is my KPI for the year, and I will be assessed on those. And of course, I talked about the behavior part. Every organization has their own way of doing it. As I said, for Banglalink, it's the for the behaviors that we evaluate are for the values that we have. Some organizations, assess on the competencies that they have. So it's very important that evaluation happens not only for the hard factors, but also for the softer aspects as well.
Okay, so the next one is, does the myth low CGPA will ruin the career become a fact? What's your opinion about it? What do the current organization give emphasis on?
So let me kind of make this statement very clear. You as a student, your job is to study, right? If
Yes.
your job is to study, where is your commitment? Your commitment is with your education, right? So
Yes.
definitely somebody who is committed to the education along with extracurricular activities will be a more potentially attractive candidate for me than a person who has not shown commitment to the studies, right? So definitely, if you say, it's okay to have a low CGPA, no, it's not. Okay, because lots of students are applying for the same job. Definitely a
Yes.
person who has a better, relatively acceptable CGPA with extracurricular activities will get a leverage than somebody who does not. So I hope that really makes clear, because if lots of students are nowadays, they have a thought that, oh no, CGPA is not important. That's a myth. CGPA is important.
Okay, so the next one is how a HR manager can inspire and train employees for disruptive innovation.
So it's not only HR that trains the employees for disruptive education, right? Or disruptive innovation. We at Banglalink, we give opportunities for employees. For example, if you're working in technology and there's a big project coming up, your team will give you the opportunity to do a process differently. So it's just not an HR process, but at Banglalink, we do have our innovators program. I think it is for it's for students, right? You can all participate. So that is an opportunity where we give students to actually have this case. They go through numerous rounds, and they come up with innovative solutions to real life problems. So we actually have to build innovative mindset. It's not only limited to our employees only, also to the community that we're in. And for employees, we have our similar we have these internal competitions as well, where employees participate with their ideas. So it's just, apart from these, innovation is a part of one of our values as well. So employees are expected to be innovative in most of the work that they do.
Okay, so from Mukto, we are really keen to participate in competitions. Do you believe these competitions like Advent HR is going to give me experiences apart from the bookish knowledge?
Absolutely. For example, you see, when you are just studying for an exam, you're probably just studying theories, right? But what is the
Yes.
application of that theory? For example, you are reading in the book that diversity and inclusion is very important nowadays, gender equality, right? You might be learning that in a HR book, but how is that applicable in an organization context, right? That is something you can really learn from a case study. So, for example, for this Advent competition that you're having, I know that Banglalink is providing two case studies, right? So these,
Yes.
you will be able to learn a lot of those will be the brain jerkers, right? You will be able to think differently and come up with your solutions. So definitely, while you learn the theories in the book, the implementation as a student in your capacity, it is definitely through these competitions. And I highly encourage and appreciate that the HR club at BUP is doing this, and I'm sure it will definitely add value to your career.
Okay, so one final question that I will actually like to move on, that was given by Salman Shahriar. I think what he meant was like how which factors is considered considering the HR and organizational management relating to business analytics.
Right. So you see, when I spoke about HR business partnering, right? So
Yes.
definitely, because now HR is not backstage anymore. We are together with the business, and we are helping and giving advice to the business to do better as well in terms of in the capacity of HR. For example, today we might need a regional head in a particular area, right? So our HR colleagues would also talk about we look into our succession pipeline and say that yes, maybe for this new role, this person, the employee X would be best suited to go and drive that business, right? So it's an advisory and consultation role. So definitely, it's not only analytics, it's not only HR analytics, but insights also. HR colleagues nowadays can give very accurate insights and analytics that helps business, reach numbers. Because at the end of the day, as I said, businesses are not run by themselves; they're run by people, right?
Yes.
And our HR policies and practices definitely enable to be a catalyst for these businesses. So definitely, I would say that HR has a very big role in driving business. Thank you.
Okay, so that was a really amazing question answer session, and I guess that's all. We have answered everyone's queries. So it was really wonderful, ma'am, to have you here, and thank you so much for this insightful discussion. I believe this session will be highly benefiting for all the participants of Advent HR and also to those people who are really enthusiastic about the HR. So, thank you everyone who were with us for the whole session. So, would you like to add anything else, ma'am?
Oh, thank you, Nahla and Famida, yesterday for inviting me for this session. It was really a privilege to represent Banglalink and speak about some of my insights here. And I'm really excited to see who wins the competition. And we're here to help in every way. So just reach out to us. And I wish all the best to all the participants and the organizing committee, of course, who are doing an excellent job, I must say, in taking this program forward. All the best to all the HR fraternity of BUP. All the best to you. And I want to see a lot of leaders coming out from there. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks to Banglalink also, who is our strategic partner for the competition. And finally, I would say that if you want to experience a really thrilling journey into the world of HR, but still haven't registered for Advantager, please hurry up and register now as the portal will be closing in just a day. And for any sort of queries, you can contact us through our Facebook page. So that's all for today. So stay tuned to the official page of UP Human Resource and Leadership Club, and the event page of Advantager. And everyone, please stay home and safe. Take care of your loved ones. Have a lovely day and a great iftar. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye, everybody.